Assalamualaikum. I am Kisina Humaira binti Khairul Anwar, and I'll start this presentation with the anatomical perspective of the ankle. The foot and ankle is made up of 26 individual bones of the foot together with the long bones of the lower limbs. Ankle joint connects the lower leg to the foot with the articulation of the tibia, fibula, and talus. Ankle is a hinge joint and located at the distal end of the tibia, distal end of the fibula, and the talus. The ligaments involved in the ankle are deltoid, anterior, posterior, medial, and lateral. In this slide, I'll talk about the biomechanical perspective of the ankle. Firstly, the motion of the foot and ankle. In the sagittal plane, plantar flexion and dorsiflexion are the key movements of the ankle joint complex, while at the transverse plane, the key movements are abduction and adduction. And for the frontal plane, it is the inversion and the eversion. Three-dimensional motions are created by combining these motions across both the subtalar and tibial-talar joints, which are called the supination and pronation, that indicate the plantar surface of the foot sole position. Supination used the plantar flexion, inversion, and adduction motions, which made the sole face medially, while pronation used dorsiflexion, eversion, and abduction motions, which had the sole face laterally. Moving to the axis of rotation of the ankle, at the sagittal plane, it occurs around the line passing through the medial and lateral malleoli, while at the coronal plane, it occurs around the intersecting point between the malleoli and the long axis of tibia in the frontal plane, while at the transverse plane, it occurs around the long axis of tibia intersecting the midline of the foot. Next, the range of motion, which occurs primarily in the sagittal plane. In everyday activities, the range of motion is reduced. For example, when walking, the range of motion would be around 30 degrees, and while ascending the stairs, the range of motion is 37 degrees, and the range of motion when descending the stairs is 56 degrees. During a normal gut cycle, the stance phase can be split into three subphases based on the sagittal motion of the ankle, which are the heel rocker, the ankle rocker, and the forefoot rocker. The heel rocker phase begins as the heel strike, where the ankle is in a slight plantar flex position, pivoting around the calcaneus until the end of the rocker phase, which is when the foot is flat on the ground. During this subphase, the dorsiflexors are eccentrically contracting to lower the foot to the ground. And for the ankle rocker phase, it is when it is where the ankle moves from plantar flexion to dorsiflexion, which during which the tibia and fibula rotate forward around the ankle, allowing forward progression of the body. And for during the forefoot rocker phase, the foot rotates around the forefoot phase, starting when the calcaneus lifts off the ground, evident by the ankle beginning to plantar flex and continuing until maximum plantar flexion. And when the maximum plantar flexion is achieved at 2 off, the power generation is achieved and the legs begins to swing. And for the forces in the ankle joint, which are the body weight, ankle power, and the congruency. Starting with the body weight, the ankle joint complex bears a force of approximately 5 times body weight during stance in normal walking, and up to 13 times body weight during activities such as running. As for the ankle power, it varies when the major muscles acting on the ankle joint complex are either absorbing or generating power during guard. and the ankle has a relatively high levels of congruency, meaning that despite experiencing high loads during normal activities, the load-bearing area of the ankle is large.
Hi, my name is Krisasanya Bungan. So I'm going to present about how ankle are related or attached to each other. So on the left side, this is the diagram of the ankle, the structure that articulate with the ankle. So firstly is the tibia, and then medial malleolus and talus, calcaneus, lateral malleolus, and fibula. So the bones that articulate with ankle joint are the distal end of the tibia articulates with the trochlea of the talus, and the medial malleolus articulate with the medial surface of the talus. And lastly, lateral malleolus articulate with the lateral aspect of the talus, where lateral malleolus of the fibula is more distally and posteriorly than the medial malleolus of the tibia. Next, the below part of the left side is where the diagram of the lateral malleolus, medial malleolus, articular facet of lateral malleolus, inferior articular facet, and articular facet of medial malleolus. So the lateral border of the ankle joint is formed by the articular facet of the ankle joint, while the medial border of the joint is formed by the articular facet of medial malleolus. Next, the inferior articular surface of the tibia and the superior margin of the talus is forming the superior portion of the ankle joint. The talus articulates anteriorly with the navicular and inferiorly with the calcaneus. Next, we move on to the ankle joint complex is made up of the talocalcaneal or known as subtalar, tibiotalar or known as talocrural, and transverse tarsals or known as talocalcaneo-navicular joint. So for the first joint, which is subtalar joint, the subtalar joint is articulate two of the tarsal bones in the foot, which are the talus and calcaneus. Next is talocrural joint. The talocrural joints forms the junction between the distal tibia and fibula of the lower leg and the talus. And lastly, talocalcaneo-navicular joint. These joints form a ball and socket joint formed between three tarsal bones which are the talus, calcaneus, and navicular bone. So the left side of the diagram is shown the joints that have been mentioned. Lastly, I will present about the ligament that related to the ankle joint. So the first one is deltoid ligament. Deltoid ligament consists of four ligaments that form a triangle connecting the tibia to the navicular, the calcaneus, and the talus. Second, anterior talofibular ligament, or known as ATFL. ATFL attached to the neck of the talus in front of the lateral malleolar facet. Third, posterior talofibular ligament, or known as PTFL. PTFL connects the malleolar fossa located on the medial surface of the lateral malleolus with the lateral tubercle of the posterior process of the talus. Fourth, tibio-navicular ligament. This ligament connects the malleolus on the side of each ankle to tarsal bones of the foot. And lastly, the calcaneofibular ligament, or known as CFL. CFL attach the lateral malleolus to the calcaneus. So on the bottom part is the diagram of some of the ligament that have been mentioned, and These are the diagram that related to the ankle joint.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Fatina Billah binti Muhammad Latif. In this part, I will explain how the anatomical structures are well suited to perform the functions that they do. The talocalcanea or subtalar, tibiotalar or talocrural, and transverse tarsal or talocalcanea navicular joints form the ankle joint complex. Firstly, in the subtalar joint, the anterior talocalcaneal joint has two similarly articulate facets that are convex on the inferior aspect of the talus and concave on the superior aspect of the calcaneus, while the posterior talocalcaneal joint has facets that are concave on the inferior aspect of the talus and convex on the superior aspect of the calcaneus. While other motion is allowed at this joint due to its structure, the majority of the eversion and inversion of the foot happens here. Secondly, the tibiotalar joint. The distal tibia, fibula and talus of the lower leg link together at the tibiotalar joint. The head, neck and body are all contained within the talus bone, which is not directly connected to any muscle. The distal ends of the long bones of the shin combine to form a mortise that the trochlea of the talus inserts into. The talus is constrained by the myelite of the tibia and fibula, which makes the joint operates as a hinge joint and mainly participates in the plantar and dorsal flexion movements of the foot. Nevertheless, the joint structure, which involves the cone-shaped trochlea surface and the oblique rotation axis, does suggest it might not just be a hinge. The joint is more stable in dorsal flexion because the talus is at its broadest anteriorly. The tibiotalar joint's corresponding structure is suggested to play a role in the stability of the joint. The last joint is transverse tarsal joint. This joint combines the talus navicular junction, where entirely the talar head articulates with the posterior part of the navicular, and the calcaneal cuboid joint, which connects the calcaneus and cuboid. Due to their shared axis of motion and involvement in the eversion, inversion motion of the foot, the transverse tarsal joint and subtalar joint can be considered as being part of the same functional unit. Next, we move to the ligament. The major stabilizing ligaments are the deltoid ligament for the medial ligament, and for the lateral ligament are the interior and posterior talofibular ligament and the calcaneal fibular ligament. The first ligament is the deltoid ligament. It is made up of 4 ligaments that connect the tibia to the navicular, calcaneus and talus in the shape of a triangle. It stabilizes the ankle joint during foot eversion and defends against ankle subluxation. Furthermore, there is the tibio-navicular ligament, which makes up the deltoid ligament's most anterior portion, and the tibiocalcaneal ligament, a thin ligament. These two ligaments both serve to strengthen the ankle joint. Third, interior talofibular ligament, which is anterior medially extending flat with bend. It will prevent the talus from moving forward in relation to the fibula and tibia, and will strengthen the ankle joint. In addition, it resists inversion during plantar flexion. The next ligament is posterior talofibular ligament. The structure for this ligament is thick, a somewhat sturdy band that runs medially and horizontally. When the ankle is fully extended, dorsiflex, this ligament is under greater pressure. This ligament's main function is to form the recipient socket's back wall, which houses the talus trochlea. Additionally, it controls dorsal flexion and opposes talus posterior movement. The last ligament is calcaneofibular ligament. This is a circular cord that crosses the posterior inferior. This ligament will support the stability of the talofibula during dorsal flexion. Other rules include preventing talar tip into eversion and preventing calcaneus inversion in relation to the fibula. Now, I will explain about how the physiology of muscle contraction for the part assigned. Leg muscles are separated into posterior, anterior, and lateral divisions. Firstly, the superficial posterior compartment and the deep posterior compartment made from the posterior compartment of the leg. The gastrocnemius, soleus, and plantaris muscles, which are the main muscles involved in ankle plantar flexion, are located in the superficial posterior compartment. The gastrocnemius will plantar flexed foot at ankle joint and flexed leg at knee joint. Next, for soleus muscle, it will plantar flexed foot at ankle joint. Lastly, plantaris that will contract by plantar flexed foot at ankle joint and flexed leg at knee joint. Second, the deep posterior compartment, which contributes to ankle joint inversion, is made up of the popliteus, tibialis posterior, flexor digitorum longus, and flexor hallucis longus. Popliteus will flex leg at knee joint and medially rotates tibia to unlock the extended knee. Second, tibialis posterior will react to plantar flexed foot at ankle joint and inverse or supinate foot at intertarsal joint. For flexor digitorum longus, it will contract by plantar flexed foot at ankle joint, which are flexed distal and middle phalanges of toes, second antefoot at interphalangeal joints, and proximal phalange of toes, second antefoot at metatarsophalangeal joint. Lastly, flexor hallucis longus. The action for this muscle is plantar flexed foot at ankle joint, which are flexed distal phalanx of grade 2 at interphalangeal joint and proximal phalanx of grade 2 at metatarsophalangeal joint. Third, the main muscle that promotes dorsal flexion of the ankle joint is the tibialis anterior, which is located in the anterior compartment of the leg. In addition, the anterior compartment includes the muscle extensor hallucis longus, extensor digitorum longus, and fibularis tertius. The tibialis anterior muscle, it will dorsal flexed foot at ankle joint and inverse or supinate foot at intertarsal joints. Next, extensor hallucis longus will dorsal flexed foot at ankle joint and extend proximal phalanx of grade 2 at metatarsophalangeal joint. Next, extensor digitorum longus will function by dorsal flexed foot at ankle joint and extend distal and middle phalanges of each two at interphalangeal joints and proximal phalanx of each two at metatarsophalangeal joint. Lastly, fibularis tertius react to dorsal flexed foot at ankle joint and inverse or pronate foot at intertarsal joints. Lastly, the lateral compartment of the leg contains the fibularis longus and fibularis brevis muscles, which are responsible for eversion of the ankle joint. Both muscles will have the same action, which is plantar flexed foot at ankle joint and everse or pronate foot at intertarsal joints. In conclusion, muscles that control the ankle joint must contract in order to perform plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. That's all from me. Thank you.
And lastly, the routine radiograph of the ankles are AP projection, mortise projection, and lateral projection. In AP projection, the anatomical structures that can be seen are medial malleolus, talus, lateral malleolus, and the base of the fifth metatarsal. In the mortise projection, we can see the tibial plafon, medial malleolus, talus, lateral malleolus, ankle mortise, and the distal tibiofibular joint. And lastly, the lateral projection, we can see the tibia, fibula, anterior tubercle, navicular, base of the fifth metatarsal, cuboid, calcaneus, and the talus.